All right, this is going to be part 2, and it's going to be much quicker. So what I'm going to do is no more resets. It's becoming too confusing, and I'll explain why. So these coils are made of tungsten. There's tungsten on the inside of these, similar to a light bulb. A light bulb is tungsten, glass. It's filled with argon to keep oxygen out to prevent tungsten from turning into tungsten oxide. Same aspect here, but the container is ceramic. So what you see is literally ceramic being sandwiched and then compressed all the way around the coil, so there's no air at all. The minute the coil cracks, the tungsten becomes tungsten oxide. It is then no good. The coil is no good, so on and so on. So that's that. But what I am, I guess, trying to convey is that the coils themselves, they alter resistance. I know there's a lot of people here that have used some type of e-cigarette or vape device or whatever and are used to things such as Kanthal, nichrome, nickel, titanium, so on and so on and so on. This is completely different. This is a whole nother animal. What this does is, in order to prevent things such as overdraw, that's why, for example, we don't have to worry, well, we do, but we don't have to worry as much about high currents and things like that. The reason why is, as the coil heats, the resistance changes. Normally, when when voltage is applied, the amperage is going to double, right? So for example, these batteries, I believe, have like a 10 amp max draw on them, right? But we are never drawing anywhere near that, because, so let's say this coil rests, a stock Puffco coil, the range is like 0.5 to 0.55, something like that, right? That's its base, that's the range that it'll store automatically. That's the range that it knows. You can change a Puffco coil 100 times. It's not really gonna matter if the device goes on and off. It's within a similar range. So voltage is the same. The difference is when we start getting into all these other different resistance coils. This device does not do live reading. And what I mean by that is, if I unscrew this atomizer, this device doesn't know I did that. And then I go and I put on a new coil that is a completely different resistance, a different coil, different size, different resistance. However you want to say, even just changing from one to another, this device never saw that change. So normally devices like this, this is actually a good way to sell. So if I take this off of here and put it back on, and I go to fire it, it doesn't focus. Let's see if I can get it to focus though. Of course. Well, it's not gonna focus, but what it says is, it says new coil 0.40, and I just selected that. So that just stored into this device. This does not do that. The only time that this will read and store values is on boot up or within the coding. Basically what it says is, it says that, in so many words, that two things need to both align for it to store values. It needs to be at room temperature, so at least under 25 C, it's about 77 degrees. It needs to be the battery pack itself, so there's a small thermistor that's inside of the battery pack, goes to the board. As long as that has a value under 25 C or 77 degrees, and the coil is resting, the device turns on, it reads the resistance, right? So now let's say you're doing all these different things, you're resetting it. What's happening is that resistance on the coil is going up and down. So the coil heats up, resistance goes up, coil cools down, resistance comes down, right? It takes time though. So even about 5 minutes after, the resistance will rest again back at its initial reading. Its initial resistance rating. So what can happen is, you could get frustrated. You could not really understanding, because it is new. It's a new concept. It's never been done before. This device was never made to do what we're doing. So we are going as we go, you know. But that's ultimately why shutting off the device is important in between any atomizer swap. You want to get a fresh reading on whatever atomizer you're using. It's not worth applying the wrong voltage to a coil that is larger or at lower resistance or whatever and not get what you're looking for out of it when it's as simple as just turning it on and off. So we'll go back. I'm going to heat this coil. Always put it on white. You want to get the maximum stretch out of the coil. Even if you're not using white in your dabs and things like that, just initially, we want to use this cycle to heat this coil up. And this is a brand new coil. This is from the last video I just stopped because this peak was dead. But you can see, not much going on. Very slow. This is a first pulse. I'll do it again, and you'll notice after even the second, it gets better. It's really probably around your 5th usage is where you really have the coil completely broken in. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna extend it. So I'm just gonna shut it down because I want it to cool quicker. So this video isn't as long, but I'm gonna wait for a second for it to cool down, and we're gonna run a new cycle on it, and we'll see if there's any difference. You know, these coils, as I said, they are sintered. They are sandwiched. That's actually the best way to say it. They're sandwiched, but the actual term is sintered. So each coil, some can be sintered tighter. And like I said, we're talking about micrometer. I mean, the amount, it's so small. The buzzing that you hear, that's going to be based on, you know, some coils buzz, some coils don't. The tighter they are, the more they're going to buzz. The looser they are, there's no difference in tightness and looseness as far as the ceramic goes. You're talking very, very low. It's just how, when the machine cooled, how tight it packed it together. The measurements are all, you know, very similar, same, but those are all variables that, you know, nobody really looks at and what I look at specifically. So just for the sake of the video, let's get this back up and going again. We'll see what we get this time. So the one thing I want you to notice is, did you notice how fast that heat cycle was? Did you notice that the actual cycle, the actual heating and the way the glow is different? And it's going to be different from coil to coil, person to person, dab to dab, reading to reading. The device is doing temperature control. It just does it. It uses an algorithm. It's all math. It's this times this equals this, and then this times this equals this, and then this is the result, and so on and so on. It's all math. So I think I just killed it, but that's why this device has the capability of firing this coil much, much hotter. So let's see. This device is almost dead too. Actually, I might have just killed it there. Let's see. Yeah, we charged it for about 3 minutes. Yeah, I just want to keep doing this because I want to show so you'll immediately notice how much brighter this cycle is. See? Like I said, it's normally 4th, 5th light. You don't have to do this. You can cycle it. You can do this if you want. Just give it time in between each cycle to allow your peak to cool down. But just like everything, they need to break in, they need to stretch. That ceramic is stretching for the first time around these coils, but again, the cycle is different. Whatever temperature I'm trying to get to based on the initial reading of this device in this room with this coil and this atomizer is going to be the result you see here. And the device is dead, so I guess we're done. I think I'm going to put up another video. We'll be back.